Alright, so this video is about the reading part of the SQ3R reading strategy. And this is arguably, well actually it's not arguable, it is the most important piece, okay? So pay close attention to this one. So when you're reading, at this point you're going to be answering the questions that you had in the previous step of this strategy. So you're going to do that in several ways. You're actually going to read the text now. And so you're going to do this actively. So we've talked about active reading before, but the key to active reading is being engaged in the reading. And to be engaged in the reading, you have to do things, right? So I'm going to tell you the things that you need to do. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to start down here with sickness. Let's assume I've read this part up here. At college, you'll spend your days in an ever-cycling pattern of you're about to get a cold, you got a cold, you just got over a cold, siesta la vie. But if you're really sick, flu, strep, stomach bug, I'm going to add fever into this, please don't come to class. So, if I was active reading, I might highlight or underline this sentence here, because this is the big part of this section. This is less important. This might be important. Let's read. Your pounding headache isn't going to encourage mental retention, and your classmates will die a little bit inside every time you hack a phlegmy, germy cough into their atmosphere. Give yourself a day or two to improve, or at least be less contagious before you set yourself on the world again. So this is just kind of describing what this main sentence is saying. So I'm going to highlight this, I'm going to underline this, and I'm going to do this for two reasons. The first reason is because I want to be able to know what's important. The second reason is because if you're actively looking for things to underline or highlight, you're engaging in the text. You're paying attention to what it says. You're trying to find the important things. And that's what's key. So let's say I had a question about emergencies. So if I was reading this, sometimes there are more important things at stake than your perfect attendance record. If something urgent comes up while education is in session, go for it. You'll never look back on visiting your best friend in the hospital after an accident and think, man, I wish I had gone to my geology class instead. Similarly, it's okay to take the occasional day off for important life experiences. Unless you have a professor who hates families, class on Wednesday shouldn't prevent you from going home for Thanksgiving. And if J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates, or the president comes to speak on campus, it's a conflict with one of your classes. Do I even need to finish this sentence? So, if I was going to ask a question, I might write on here something like, does Chris D'Elia count from the comedy show this week? And then when I have class, I can ask myself that question, or I can ask my professor that question, or there might be a discussion and I bring up that question. But it's important to write down what your question was in order to remember your question, right? So it's totally possible that your question gets answered way down here in the bottom, but odds are that you can use that question when you're in class. Another reason to write something in the margin would be if you make a connection to another text or something you learned in class or something you even learned in another class. That would all be appropriate. So it's just a good habit to be in to write things in the margins, okay? So the other thing you're going to do is you're going to break this up into text. Let's pretend that this was 30 pages long and it's a really dense research article. I might break my text up in several ways. So I can chunk it by the paragraphs, by the headings. So if you have a long book to read, you can do it by chapter. You can do it just by paragraph or by section. The other thing that you can do to break up your text is to set a timer. So you can read in chunks by time. So read for 10 minutes, or read for 15 minutes and take a break, or read for 20 minutes and take a break. Use those assistive technology devices that we've been talking about, like Forest or a timer on your phone, to help you kind of stay in the game for this. But it's going to help you remember this information, and it's going to help it when you get further into the strategy.